Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We are continuing our reading of this radical feminist book. It's pretty intense. Other times we can see her point of view, but at other times we can definitely see where she is not for an Islamic world or a Christian world and is hell-bent on not having a theocracy. So we're on her next chapter, which is titled Bodies of Work. Let's begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's important for us to dissect their ideas, come up with solutions, rebuttals, so that people can hear the other side. If we just ignore them, in my opinion, it doesn't really always work to defeat them, especially when they're the majority. Let's begin. Bismillah. In almost every conceivable industry, sexuality has been weaponized against women's advancement. Hold up. This is kind of funny. Okay, conceivable industry, sexuality has been weaponized against women's advancement. Hold on. Women being able to dress really corporate sexy has helped them to pull the heartstrings on their male co-workers, their male superiors. Female sexuality helps women get lots of tips in the service industry concerning restaurants. I knew women who we were supposed to button up our shirts. You weren't really supposed to show, that little indentation here on your neck? That little star, the clavicle? I don't know what it's called. But I failed anatomy class. Just kidding. I never took anatomy class. That I failed it. But you couldn't button the shirt to show the beginning of your cleavage. But then one day, okay, for example, I used to button all the way up because I like that look of like a pressed iron uniform, your elegant server shirt. And it's buttoned all the way up, and I would wear like a ponytail, and since I have really curly hair, it just would look quite nice, right? Presentable, very chic, as best as you can look. Other women would do very sleek back looks, but we had this one woman who came in, and she didn't have big boobs. She was kind of more of that classy, vogue, chic type of chest, and she buttoned her shirt very low. And there's this idea that women with flatter chests can show more cleavage, and that if you have bigger endowments, you have to actually wear looser clothing, and you shouldn't flaunt it, even though I am well aware that that type of social norm is kind of fading in certain circles because everyone's got plastic balloons now. They all look kind of like Los Angeles porno chicks. But we're talking about like classy beautiful, not raunchy ghetto ratchet chicks, not that kind. And it would make me mad, but she would get a lot of tips, and because she had that style, she was really able to have the pot-bellied chefs under her thumb. Let's just put it that way. And these men there wasn't really any in-shape men at work. They didn't look like they were gym guys. And so when you have a girl like that who's fully confident in her sexuality and just kind of a harpy, she was able to advance and not get in trouble. And if you're beautiful in any industry and you flaunt your sexuality, it helps your advancement. And I'd argue a lot of the ugly girls who work really, really hard, they don't get that. I have seen older women who should have deserved the compliment, doing really well, but the male managers are really focused on the young hot girls. This is just how it is. So are those girls who are making extra tips complaining they're getting more money from the male customers and more hours from the manager? I don't think so. Sexual violence in the workplace functions as a way of making sure women in male-dominated environments know their place and remember their role. Shut up and smile, or else. I don't. I can only speak to the restaurant industry. Again, I haven't worked in every restaurant. But beautiful women talking, smiling, giggling, flirtatious, they do never get told to shut up. They never get told to shut up. Ever. It's usually the obese or porky, chubby, flubby girls. They don't have a good time. That's not fun for them. Beautiful women, they're never told to shut up. Unless it's by a gay guy. Very famous man who has lost his job because he couldn't keep his hands off his interns. There are hundreds of talented, brilliant women and girls who never rose through the ranks, never got to make full use of their faculties or contribute to culture. Well, what about the casting couch? Angelina Jolie, all these Hollywood girls. What's that porker's name? Harvey Weinstein. Hollywood, how many of those women had to do stuff in order to get their parts? Which you could argue it is wrong to kind of coerce women into doing that. Even Drake Bell, the one who played on Drake and Josh, there was a Nickelodeon expose on HBO called All Quiet on Set, I believe. They had some trouble there, and there was some talk of Ariana Grande and Amanda Bynes having to tolerate things in order to rise up, and if they didn't do that, then it was a problem. But we must not pretend that there aren't women who weaponize their sexuality in order to climb up fast. I just really think that a lot of women do benefit from their beauty in the workplace, and if they covered their beauty with a hijab or a niqab, and these men are very hedonistic, you would see who would get treated better. The uncovered woman who's got her assets flaunting, or the covered woman who doesn't really chit-chat. Some of these men want work wives. That's the part that so often goes unspoken when we talk about work and whose work matters in the world. Well, a lot of work matters, you know. The baker has to have someone to make the ingredients in the flour mill. The cheesemonger, he's got to have a place to sell his stuff. So he needs someone creating a supermarket, a farmer's market, you name it. He needs the dairy farmer. So it all contributes, right? So however you contribute, you just gotta measure it in that niche market. Like the chemist makes bleach, which I love. I love the smell of bleach. Woohoo! It's a housewife's favorite cleaning agent. But also that same chemist in another field is creating chemical weapons. You see what I'm saying? So, one kills germs, the other one wins the wars. The Me Too movement began as a campaign against workplace sexual harassment. First, women within the relatively rare worlds of media, entertainment, politics, and technology spoke about the humiliation and silencing they experience when trying to do the jobs they've been hired for. Now, in the restaurant industry, there's a lot of sexual harassment. I experienced that. It's really disturbing. But I don't know how you really change that, because women do so much sexual harassment as well. I'll never forget, there was this older woman, her name was Sarah Gale. I don't know her last name, but she was the general shift manager, and she was real slender, okay? She's like flat-chested, kind of overly tan, kind of like that leathered look that some blonde women get when they spend too much time drinking mimosas under the sun on the beach. And she hasn't got the clue yet that she's not really got it anymore. She had a sundress on, which she shouldn't have been allowed to wear to work, to be quite honest. She should have to wear the uniform. She had like a little jacket on, and there was this young cook. He's probably fresh out of high school. He was shucking oysters, and she opened up her jacket. She didn't have a bra on, and did like the shimmy you do with your chest. And he looked down so disturbed. He's like blushing, but like it wasn't like a blushing like, oh, you're so hot. It was like he literally was so uncomfortable. He later quit. Not shortly after that. And this woman was constantly trying to flirt with him, and it was very gross. She was not aware of her, how she's not sexy in her own head because she loved to drink a lot, and she thinks that she still got it. But either way, she was so unprofessional with this young man that he had to leave because of her. And if I were to go report her to management, that they wouldn't have taken my thing very seriously. A woman sexually harassing? No. But men are always taken real serious. And there were chicks who were constantly talking about vulgar things that they did at the club. I can't wait to go drink tonight. And like they would just say the most sluttiest things. And right where the line cooks can hear. And it's like, okay, we got double standards here. So what I hate is how women will sexually harass men. And then if men complain, the other men sometimes tell them, well, you don't like hearing that stuff? What's so bad? You feel violated? Show me where she touched you, bro. They actually mock men. But by men allowing that behavior, they're causing their own downfall, because when the men do it back, because they think it's okay, then all of a sudden the woman cries wolf. And I'll tell you something. One day the woman will like it. She'll do it back to you. Maybe her and her husband, boyfriend had a fight. But then the next time you do it, she may be in a pissy mood. And then boom, right after she's finishing her shift, she goes to the manager's office, says, can I talk to you for a second? Next thing you know, you're sitting with HR. And you're totally confused. Like, well, I thought we were cool. I thought we were like that. Nope. So it's a trap. It's a trap. So if you just don't engage with the woman and you discipline your inner nafs, you'll be a lot safer. So it's unfair that women will humiliate men in the way they sexually harass. And further, there's a lot of gay men who are so vulgar they talk about their escapades. And if you complain about them, then they say that you're shaming them, or that you're homophobic or something. When in reality, I just don't want to hear what you did in San Francisco, you know? Then with somewhat less fanfare, women in lower paid, less glamorous industries begin to make demands. Fast food workers, farm workers, domestic workers, members of the military. Now, members of the military, that's pretty scary, because I've read some things where, women were violated. But to me, I think that's just more proof that women shouldn't be in the military. I just think it's so dangerous. I don't think that you belong there as a woman. You should get out of there. It's just not safe for you. Men, you want there to be high honor in the military, but you're gonna get some men who are like, I'm here, and I have some issues. And some women think if they're really masculine, that this will make the men in the military not want them. No, they're around, it's a sausage fest. And men got three options. Their hand, another man, or the masculine soldier woman, and God forbid, a villager girl from whatever country they're in. A lot of really innocent village girls got forced to have children against their will, Really quite sad. But I do agree that the military does not protect women very well. And I don't think women should voluntarily go into the military. I don't think it's worth the risk. But then remember that there was a female white cop, and it was covered by Alva and Preach and all these other viral channels. It was a white lady, not very beautiful. Her husband looks like a soy-breasted male, okay? Like the exact stereotype you'd think. And she was having trains ran on her by her police co-workers, And like, what? So the women can go into places and get men in trouble. I just really think that we have to be so much better. Soon men all over the world were losing their jobs because of sexual violence, and that continues to have an enormous implications. So I think it's good for men not to discuss sin, aggression, and lewdness at work. They'd love to do it. I think if wives heard how some of their husbands talk at work, they'd be quite horrified. Horrified. And when men talk like that in front of another man's wife, and if he's handsome, that's a fitna. That's a big test. You know? And they bring it up in front of your wife because they want to get your wife. It's a scary world out there, man. Traditional legal systems have proven themselves utterly inadequate to the task of regulating sexual violence, sexism, and institutional racism. So she's got all the buzzwords, you know. I remember Kit Harington said that there was sexism towards handsome men in Hollywood, and I believe him. You know, I think that some of those handsome men, they get really harassed by gay men, you know. And by really, like, ugly boss ladies who, like, if you don't do this to me, I'm not going to give you the part. We don't talk a lot about predatory females who do things to handsome young men. Like an ugly 40-year-old lady, she's got a position of power. There's this handsome 24-year-old guy, and she's holding his promotion hostage if he doesn't do stuff with her. You know, that's real. And I'm sure, at least I hope, she would think that's wrong as well. Not just when it's sided with women. For cultural change in recent years, when individuals have been accused of abuse, harassment, or active prejudice, they have been far more likely to lose their job or be forced to resign from positions of influence than they have been to face any legal consequences. Corporate reputation, in short, has become a substitute for collective ethics. So corporate reputation versus collective ethics. Well, hopefully the corporations can get better at their ethics, but at the same time, you just gotta dip out, and if they're not gonna change certain policies, you just gotta go where there's greener pastures. When a man loses his job because his company or colleagues cannot support his behavior, particularly if he is an influential white man, it is experienced by wider culture as a collective attack. Why should I have to go racial? I just think you shouldn't bring race into it, you know? I think that there's plenty of pervy people in every demographic, but some people are more hornier than others. Demotion or unemployment is a humiliation on many levels. In a culture that values work as the preeminent moral discipline and equates professional success with private virtue. Now that's an interesting, the Protestant work ethic. So she has a point there. A culture that values work. So yes, what is it, John Smith, who does not work shall not eat, one of the early colonists, I believe his name was. I liked that quote because it was fascinating to see, like, if you're a lazy sloth and the word faggot was like a bundle of sticks, and it's like a burden. And so if you're just this effeminate brain drain in a time when people need everyone to pitch in, well, that becomes a problem. And valuing hard work does sometimes just get you assigned more work, and you gotta know where to work hard and who to work hard for. There was a motto with the communists that said they pretend to pay us and we pretend to work. And so when you've taken off the ability of a meritocracy and you've guaranteed a certain level of income, you don't really have to work as hard because you have a certain level that to be expected. And if hard work gets punished with more taxes, that can be problematic as well. So there's a lot to look at. So there's nothing wrong with valuing work, for men at least, and different kinds of work. And so when she talks about discipline and equates professional success with private virtue, now that can be a problem. You think just because this person is a CEO, they are somehow a good person. I think more people have realized the wolves of Wall Street, the sharks of those fields. I think, ironically, Hollywood, like shows like Succession, were great for that. And I don't think today people automatically hear that. But if you say, I'm a doctor, and then you're like, oh yeah, you're a doctor. And then if you find out, like Anthony Fauci, for example, if you look this up, he didn't experiment with beagles. Google probably will erase that page for you, but I'm sure you can find it. Where these flesh-eating type of Africanized flies, they were called. I'm not sure what variety of insect they were. But he had the beagles alive to put their head inside of a glass box and let the flies eat the beagles while alive. And so he's seen it like you can see like private virtue. I think that's really quite cruel. Vivisection that they do on the monkeys, like Elon Musk. Yeah, he allowed us to have more free speech on X, but the brain chip experiments on the monkeys look pretty gnarly. And so one must wonder, truly, how many lab coats are doing really shady things that we don't get to see. Alright? The uniform can make you think that person is privately virtuous, but we judge what we can. We can't just be overly suspicious, but we can be skeptical of certain people, I'd argue. Good amount of skepticism. The idea that men and white women might suddenly be held to higher ethical standards in the workplace provokes revulsion, precisely because it signals a change in social norms. So, it's the first time she attacked like a white woman. So she's like, women's power. Oh, except you, white woman. And it's like, whoa. So who's considered white? Russian, Bulgarian, Italian, French, German, Polish, Norwegian, Swedish people. That's a lot of millions upon millions upon millions of people that she hates, simply for the shade of their skin. Much of the pushback over the last half-decade of public resignations and high-profile hiring across the world of media, culture, academia, finance, politics, and entertainment has centered on the loss of this represents the valuable contributions that these men and white women might have made had they been allowed to continue their work unchallenged. If you make a mistake, I think you can come back from that, I think if you're a guy in the workplace and you just told someone something uncouth, I don't think you should be canceled forever. You gotta learn from your mistakes. It depends on the degree of the infraction, but people can fix themselves. If we fired every woman who said something sexual, a lot of places wouldn't have workers. So you gotta give people chances to reform, because some people are very ignorant and they do not realize what they did was wrong. I know that sounds weird, but for real, sometimes people think anything's okay is because no one has corrected them, and that's the irony. She's like, oh, sexual revolution, give up and have the night hookup culture, and she thinks that doesn't lead to mental and ethical decay. It's quite strange. The capitalist workplace has always been an enforcement mechanism for gender and racial norms. So the capitalist workplace. Okay, so I want her to prove what capitalism says about gender and race. Because when I think of capitalism, it's just a system of economics. And it doesn't stop a woman. Capitalism doesn't work differently for men than it does women. If you know how to play that system, you play it. Your race doesn't matter because money knows no color. You know, I think crony corporatism, crony capitalism maybe could have a problem, right? Nepotism. But is it really capitalism? I don't know. Because when I think of capitalism, I'm not an expert on economics yet, even though I read Milton Friedman's works, and I have Karl Marx's Das Kapital, and I do enjoy reading some Adam Smith. I used to have those videos on the channel, but the quality was so poor because I had like my Mac back then and I didn't really know how to record, that the graininess of the video just wasn't worth it. So I took away those Adam Smith videos. But if you sell, and I haven't studied Muslim economics, Islamic economics, but apparently some have said having capital, you can't do that. So I still have a lot to learn. But the basic of getting a profit, like adding 50 cents, a top percent to something for your own benefit, I mean, why can't you do that? If something costs me $4 to make, I sell it for $8. I don't see the problem if someone's willing to pay. There can be merciful capitalism, but at the same time, why it really depends. Like, I get it. Like, if you have a monopoly and the capital you're trying to get is too much of a burden for the people and you impoverish them, that can be a problem. But then, if you really think it's a free market and someone else opens it up and then sells it to undercut you, like what Walmart does, well, then what's the problem? There's a lot of ways you can go into it, but capitalism deals with a lot of math and numbers and percentages, and that starts to really weigh me down. So I'll leave it up to other people to debunk her. But what I've read about capitalism doesn't, like, aren't these rappers? They're doing a capitalist thing, and they're rich as can be, you know. When people of color and white women are routinely passed over for promotion, edged out of their workplaces by harassment, or simply not hired at all, that is not just a loss to individuals, it is a loss to society as a whole, as talent and innovation are systematically suppressed in order to concentrate power, money, and influence in the hands of white people and of men. Every year, in the United States, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission receives over 100,000 complaints of discrimination at work on the basis of race, sex, gender, and ability. But less than 1 in 5 of these cases ever results in restitution. Well, I don't know how you go about proving that, because sometimes something can be so subtle you see it, but you just gotta let it go. But you see how sneaky she is with the sex and gender. You know, sometimes if you look into how many people who put their pronouns on their resumes don't get hired, it's for a reason, because they seem to just be liabilities, seeking problems, seeking victimhood. And they police everyone and make everyone walk on eggshells. There was a news story about that not too long ago. You can look it up and see. People who put pronouns in their bios called back less, hired less. Keywords, and then you'll see some stories. As polite society continues to rail against cancel culture, the wealthy and successful deplore dismissals on the basis of prejudice as mob justice, even going as far as calling such campaigns witch hunts and lynchings. It is significant that when the white and wealthy feel they are being hard done by, they reach for language used to describe actual physical murders of violence enacted within living memory on the bodies of black and brown people and of white women. Man, she's so just agonizing. She really has to find victims and, like, use these victims as strawmans and hold them up as, like, these dead scarecrows. A witch hunt is a fascinating thing because they are real. There are people who really want to stir things up, and they use the metaphor of a lynching because of how it feels upon the individual and how insane people can get. I've been canceled many times, and I've had witch hunts done on me as well. And it's a real thing, and when you go through it, the first time you're like, I don't understand what the big problem is. But there are people who are perpetually outraged. And you just gotta keep going, and they can make you disappear in the algorithm. They just flag you, bot you, write fake things about you to people. It's quite strange. So it is a sort of a murder of your online persona. And it can cause you stress if you're not careful, right? So I was looking at, so she's talking about, violence is only matters when it's on the bodies of non-whites or the bodies of, women. But I was looking at different medieval torture devices. You look at the history of the Spanish Inquisition. If you look at how General Butt Naked, he was this cannibalistic warlord in Africa. You look at how we saw in Haiti just recently, the gangs are ruling over there, and they were eating people. I watch these kind of war videos because they're quite real. You also have seen some wars in the Middle East. I watched one where a man cut a man's chest open and bit into his heart. She's insane to think that if you use language like witch hunts and lynchings, mob justice, that it's bad because white people are culturally appropriating actions of violence upon non-whites. Do you see what she's trying to get at here? She's playing a kind of rhetoric game, but plenty of races all harm each other. So we don't need to get into the weeds of, well, it's only bad if it's done to non-whites. And, it's okay if it's done to white men, but not okay if it's done to white women. So she's putting white women against white men and all blacks against whites. Quite strange. She must be a joy to have at a gathering. Wink, wink. The modern workplace is an enforcing mechanism for hierarchies of racial and gendered power. No. Okay, so the modern workplace enforces gendered power. How so? You have to prove that, okay? Do women go for certain things? Do all women want to be at the top of the pyramid? Is that something that's in us innately, whereas men kind of want to be on the top of the hill? And then hierarchies of race. So women don't try to have hierarchies amongst themselves? Is that what she's trying to say? Which is totally false. The queen bee mentality, main character energy. What is that? So all these women are saying all these other chicks are not as important as them. The expectation that unwanted sexual attention would be part of the work for any female person in paid employment ought to have been buried with a stake in its heart long ago. Yeah, if you don't want someone to harass you like that, it shouldn't be done, and women should also shut their mouths and not sexually harass the handsome guys in the office. How about that? I remember, you can look this up. A woman at Disneyland gropes Gaston worker. Gaston was the figure in Beauty and the Beast. And you can pose with the characters at Disneyland. And so this guy was posing, and this lady grabbed his junk, and he told her to stop. And she was shocked. Right? So women think that if a man is handsome, they have a right to touch them. So women will complain when men touch them, but they are allowed to do it to the men. I say Islam has a better system. Don't freaking touch each other. Okay? Because it's wrong. Okay? He didn't consent to it, and you groped him. Freak. But she thought, oh, I'm pretty. It's like I can get away with it, and it's okay. Trust me, a lot of women sexually harass. And I really hope men start playing by the book and stop trying to think. But the sad part is, men will allow this behavior from women because they want to cheat on their girlfriends and cheat on their wives. And if this chick if they can work this girl down slowly, and have her as a side piece, they will. And then they think they're going to work this chick, get her down, they get to cheat on their woman with her, and then suddenly that girl changes her mind on like the wind blows, and he loses his job. His girlfriend finds out why he lost his job, or his wife finds out, now he's getting divorced, now he's broken up. So he didn't get laid, he lost his job, and he lost his relationship. All because he slowly allowed this woman to flirt with him, to tempt him, and he indulged. You see? It's just, we have to remember profit usage. It persists, however, because sexual violence, including workplace sexual harassment, is a form of discipline. Whoa! Whew! That is nihilistic. That it's allowed to happen to women to discipline them. This sounds like her fetish. I bet you this lady watches quite a lot of violent adult content. The way she's talking right now, like, it's a form of discipline, my daughter. I would be, like, creeped out if she's talking like this. Like, you think when, like, it's like, here, woman, listen to me. I'm a big brute. If you don't do what I say, I'm gonna take you in the back. It's like, oh, stop it, you're so mean. Like, we could parody this all day. I mean, it's a very dark view. She's all over the place with her hormones here, with her desires, telling women to walk and talk like they want to get effed. She literally said that. The nuclear family is bad, marriage is a bad deal, Christianity is evil. Like, she goes through all these things, right? And the religion she hates would stop men from doing the behavior she doesn't like. Ironically. But she wants women to be able to have their bags out at work, and a man, if he dares look, if he dares even go glance her way, he should be fired, ridiculed, socially canceled, and that he should be disciplined. It's really strange. It's kind of scary. If these are the kind of women in the workforce, how many wives have to hope that their husbands, stay away from some type of psycho like this, who's always looking to trap somebody? It's a tool of social control. It's a way of demonstrating who collectively has power. Women have a lot of power in America. The fact that OF has given morons millions, that men will pay to look at images that they could get for free through an AI app or just randomly online, shows you that women have a lot of power, and that is social control. These men are working boring Wendy's jobs, and they're forking over their money, simping for women who could care less if they died, and they have money then to go and spend how they want, which gives them, they're spenders in the economy, and this makes the merry go round. They have a lot of collective power, women. A lot, actually. They literally can control if a baby lives or not. If they go to the abortion clinic or not. That's a lot of social control. Because demographics is destiny. Women can abort babies en masse, and then the political power of the nation, the military might, goes down. Yeah, they can bring in immigrants, but women have a lot of social control. Who belongs in a workplace and who does not? You don't always belong in every room. That's something I had to learn. If you want to stay in a room that doesn't want you, you need to know how to exit. It's an expression of resentment at the presence of many girls, queer people, and men of color in what was, for many generations, coded as a white man's privilege. She's so full of hate. I hate to say that because it sounds cliche, but women, so we got the gender factor, the age for girls, queer, whatever the hell that means. People who like to have a mustache but also have a boob job or something. And then non-white men. So it's all her attacking white men. What's fascinating to me is liberals talk about how they hate racism, but this woman is writing a book about how much she hates white men. I don't get it. This is the hypocrisy that liberal atheists have. They're not consistent. If you hate the fact that white people exist and you want to write books about how much you hate them, but then if someone writes a funny tweet that's racial comedy, well, they should be canceled and lose their job. It's so bizarre. Of course, the idea that women are not supposed to be in the workplace, that they have usurped men's natural status and earning potential, is at odds with the reality that women have always worked, and that work has always been necessary. Okay. Yeah, women have always had to work. If your husband dies, you want to, test the ropes of the world, I get it. But what workplace does a woman belong in, they often decide. I remember reading about, they did a study, a lot of female nurses cheat. And you're like, wow. You would think that women who are in there being nurturing and seeing people in pain on their deathbed would have more God conscious about the wrath they would incur for adultery, but apparently not. It's quite sad how many will cheat with their coworkers or cheat with their boss. Or how many women who have ugly bosses, but the boss has money, and then they just start getting attracted to their boss because he has money, and their husband isn't doing something right at home, or they're having a slow period in their relationship, and she starts thinking maybe she can get with the boss, be a side chick to the boss. It's really bizarre. So, I don't belong in the workplace. I do a great job, but that isn't where I want to die. I don't want to ever have to go back, inshallah. Now, let's say I was volunteering to, check some health in the forest, like parks and recreation, or some type of watch these chickens on the farm. That's something different. But if I had to go back to working in the culinary arts scene, I would be like, I don't want to be here anymore. This philosopher needs to be home, reading, cooking, taking care of the children, and being with my parents. Workplace sexual harassment performs the same role as street harassment. A constant reminder that whoever you are and whatever you accomplish, you are body first, and that body is not wholly your own. Hold on. So workplace harassment versus street harassment. I think it's disgusting. Street harassment is pretty scary. It is freaky as a woman when you're just trying to walk and somebody's like, hey, I'm gonna fall behind you and harass you. It's that scary. I remember before I was Muslim, I was walking to the 7-Eleven. They had those yummy, yes, I'll say yummy, taquitos with the jalapeno and cream cheese. And I was going to go there and get a French vanilla coffee and some taquitos. And this cholillo is like in his car and he's like, hey mama, pss, 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 doing the whistle. And I just keep walking. He's still creeping his car. And it's like, okay, I still gotta go walk more. I don't want him to see which building I go into, so I'm gonna have to turn and bob and weave. And hopefully he doesn't, do a round. But that used to happen a lot. It's pretty scary. And, so that's why you got the Second Amendment, I'd argue, but you're confined. In the street harassment, you're confined because you can't escape as much, and in the workplace, you're held hostage because you need that paycheck. So if we want to reduce sexual harassment, the key figure here is to punish both men and women for committing it. But a lot of women, if they couldn't be sexual in the workplace, they would get less money. Because sexual aura is the best thing to manipulate men. It's one of the best tools women have in the workplace, is to manipulate men through their sexuality. Men can't do that as much unless they are exceedingly handsome. They have to leverage their power position. Whereas women can twist their back a certain way, bend a certain way, switch the tone of their voice, linger their gaze, just do a slight smirk. They can play so many games and slowly beat into sexual harassment. Or A classic one is blocking the walk-in or bending over where men are there. Countless times when women would walk behind the line. So you have the cooks here, some places, and the grill here. You're not supposed to walk behind the cooks when grabbing something. You're supposed to go around. A lot of women, they'll walk through and they'll accidentally bump into the man. Oh, can I reach over here? They'll bump their breasts on him. So there's forms of sexual harassment that are subtle and that build up over time. And they rarely get checked. And as a woman, you can perceive what's happening. But then women will say, oh, girl power, you get it, girl. Get your money. Hustle. But then suddenly, when the man gets confused and he thinks that you actually like him, and he does something and you're like, ew, I was just ovulating that day. And then he's in trouble. You really got to warn your sons. I really hope to save, I wanted to teach my daughter work ethic because I learned from a young age to have a job. I had a blue card, they called it. I don't know if they call it anymore. But you had to get a special blue card if you were underage to work. And I wanted to work. My grandpa showed me work ethic. And I liked having my own paycheck and stuff. And the older I got, I was subconsciously wanted to be a stay-at-home woman. And the two men I had picked, my first relationship, alcohol ruined it. The second one, alcohol ruined it again. As in, they like to drink too much. And now, with my third, which the man I married, he's a sober person. So, I was able to do it. But looking back, I didn't have a mom, I didn't have a dad, and I had to work to survive. But the sexual harassment, I just took it as best I could. It's creepy, but you gotta be careful. But I had seen a lot of women do that. And if you were to snitch on them, they'd call you a hater. Oh, you're a bitch. You can actually get assaulted because they'll find out who said it. And in certain situations, they're going to find out it had to have been you. There's only so many people there, and you were the only witness. I mean, they're going to figure out it was you. And so there's this sort of secret code with women where you can see a woman's getting her game on. She's leading a guy on. She's hustling him. She's getting that money. She's getting paid. And if you get in the way of that, claws out. So you got to think to yourself, I just got to, do what I got to do and go home. Can't get in the way of a woman making a bag. But then, that energy has consequences, which leads to men doing it as well. And then the hypocrisy coming in. Oh, we can do it, but they can't do it back. But if it's really about the principle, you would believe that no one should do it. And the funny part is that some women, they do it to men, but they wouldn't want women to do it to their husband. I say, no one should be doing it. And the best, I just did a video about, ways I lived a more Islamic life, and I mentioned how I don't have to free mix anymore at work, because I can be able to stay home and accept my gender role. I like that. I get that's not always possible for everyone, but I can say it's wonderful. And you'd be surprised how many women, if they went home and told their husbands, hey, I'm being sexually harassed, how many men would get their ass beat at those jobs. But also how many men would find out that their wife was kind of baiting this guy on. Right? That's another sad thing. So maybe that's why some women, they don't tell, is because they kind of know, oh, I did kind of flirt with them. I did kind of be coy and stuff like that, and I'm half to blame, but I don't want that. So some women, I think, if they're honest, were they a cold-hearted wench, or were they too really smiley, bubbly, giggly, coy, playful, and instigated him? I mean, he's only human. And a woman knows how easily it is to excite a man, and that when they become flustered with their testosterone hormones and such, they can kind of blink out in a weird way. They can kind of become very excited, like very weird. I don't know how to, if you've never seen this as a woman, you won't know what I'm talking about, but I know there's some women who can see it. When a man can't maintain his composure and you can see that he's into it and you know how to surf his emotions, you know, it can get weird. You know, subhanallah. We'll pause here because we're at the 50-minute mark. And it's going to be time for the Hur prayer. So, let me know what you think. Very tense woman, I must say. If you had a business, I wouldn't recommend hiring someone like her. Be careful out there, gentlemen. And ladies, have some accountability. Economists, you know, you can break down her capitalism enforces gender and racial norms. So what does communism enforce? Does communism enforce gender and racial norms? She hates capitalism, so what are you trying to substitute in its place? And show me the model where your new political system worked. If you want to invent your own, say that. But show me how your system is better than capitalism and won't have any type of gender or racial bias. That's the question that has to be posed to her. Let me know what you think. Interesting read. Alhamdulillah for Islam, because a lot of the problems she's describing, if you adopt an Islamic mindset, you obey the edicts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not going to run into this sexual stuff. Inshallah. Everyone fails at something. But at least you'll be more protected, I'd argue. Let me know what you think. And if you'd like to read more about what I write and support my content, you can do so by going to my blog, which is www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. Hope to see you there.